Welcome to Ancient Awakening with Castalia. For those of you who don't know me, I am Castalia, and I work on the realm of inspiration and at elfianrealm.com to help inspire the collective on their ascension journey. I work to help heal and guide through my channeled readings and spiritual coaching sessions. I am a certified card reader, channeler, and crystal Reiki master, and I am also well versed in Greek mythology and ancient Greek gods and goddesses. And what better way to combine both of my passions than to uncover the spiritual metaphors hidden in the myths? The teachings and guidelines are already there before us, just hidden beneath the surface of stories full of tragedy, heartbreak, war, death, love, and more. The time for metaphors is done. So, let's find clarity together through a transformative journey that is Ancient Awakening. And we will start by doing that by recapping the last episode, which was the Delphic Maximus, and the journal prompts the Maximus as mirrors. So, as always, I'll give a short summary of what my response to these journal prompts were, and if you want to answer them in full depth in the comments, go right ahead. I would love to see your thoughts and response to these. So, first, what does know thyself mean to me? And what part of myself have I not yet met? Know myself means understanding who I am beyond the physical, which is technically what know thyself really does mean, is like knowing who you are on a deeper level beyond who you are physically in the physical incarnation, but who you are spiritually, intellectually, emotionally, like knowing and understanding all aspects of myself. The part of myself that I feel like I have not met yet is the next version of me that I will be. I think, like, for me personally, at this time, I'm in kind of an in-between period where I'm still going through some changes, and I'm still having some things in my life that haven't yet settled. So I haven't met the version of me that I will be when I am not in this kind of stressed state of things not settling, of still trying to establish career and still trying to figure out full permanent direction with things and other aspects. So the part of me that I have not met yet is who I will be on the other side of this period of change. On this other side of settling into a new environment. Prompt 2 was, where in my life am I living in excess and what would balance look like? I think the biggest thing I live in excess with is probably people pleasing. I want to use this example because I wrote down a few different examples, but the biggest one is people pleasing, because when you're people pleasing so much, you're giving so much of your energy away. And when you're so concerned with what other people think, what other people believe, just so concerned with living for other people, that's a really big problem, because then you're not living for yourself. And I have worked on that, and I think my people pleasing has decreased significantly, but it's still there. And I would like to really get it down to complete, like, not people pleasing and just following what feels right for me. You know, because, like, there's sometimes where I want to do things to help people, and that's not people-pleasing, but there are times where I'm, like, not thinking of myself. Like, even there is a time where something bad happened to me and another person. We were both affected, and I was more concerned about that other person than I was about myself in that moment, and I didn't even stop until someone else in my life told me, why aren't you focusing on how you're feeling in this situation? So balance would be acknowledging both parties, acknowledging my hers and the other person's hurt, and making sure that I'm making myself a priority, which is always a lesson. Recovering people pleaser, still working on it. But I have improved. It takes time. And the thing is every time I think that I've overcome it, then something happens where I'm like doing something where I don't recognize as people pleasing, but it is an aspect of people pleasing. Like that example of, like, something bad happened to me and somebody else, and I was more concerned about them than I was about myself. That is an indirect people pleasing thing, because I am not focusing on me. I'm focusing on somebody else, and I'm ignoring and neglecting myself. So balance is, giving attention to both. Number 3, when have I been too certain and what did it cost me? There was a time where I was too certain about, like, my routine setting up for holistic fairs. So I was super certain that I had everything packed. I didn't even second guess or double check anything. And that happened to be the fair where I forgot one of the most important things that I needed. What it cost me was my security, because it actually ended up, me forgetting that thing ended up helping me expand my craft and helped me evolve in a better way, and it actually ended up being a good thing. But it did cost me that like security, and it made me realize that I do need to double check and double check things. But also intuition was guiding me in that case to forget it because I didn't need it. There have been examples in my life where I've been so certain about things, or like so stubbornly certain about things, and what ended up happening is I got hurt in the end. So it's just always better to double check things, is the lesson there. Number 4, which maximum feels most alive in me right now and why? Say know thyself, because I'm in the phase of fully understanding myself. But there is 147 of them, and upon reflection, I really do feel like I will probably next year, which is coming soon, take some time to do the 147 days with the Maximus, because there is a lot of them. I mean, out of the big 3, know thyself, nothing in excess. Those are the big two, and also surety brings ruin. I would say for a while, a surety brings ruin was me like in September. But now it's like know thyself and understanding more about me. But I think I will do the 147 days with Delphic Maximus here on this channel. It's like a separate side thing, because I think it could be really fun. So stay tuned for next year, because I want to understand them all, because it's very hard to like truly accurately answer that, because there's 147 and we really only talked about 3 of them. But yeah, know thyself. Prompt 5, if I were the Pythia, what maximum would I speak today and to whom? I feel like I would say surety brings ruin, because I feel like, and I would say this to I'd say to anyone, because I feel like right now what I'm observing is, like, even in my own life and in other people's lives, like when you are too overly certain that you don't allow any other opinions, any other perspectives, any other, like, you close your mind. There's a lot of people who've closed their mind to a lot of things, so I'd say surety brings ruin, because you're closing your mind. You need to open your mind. Open your mind before you open your mouth. That is a quote of a playwright who did some work in Delphi, Aristophanes. He was the father of old comedy. I have all the books of his plays. His plays are definitely metaphorical as well, and one day I think I do have it in the cup to do some of his plays, because he uses mythical elements but other things, and I've tried dissecting them. That's a fun project that I'd like to do. And he said that, open your mind before you open your mouth. I would say that to a lot of people now, is surety brings ruin. Open your mind to different perspectives. It might change the way that you perceive things, and it might actually improve your life. Because in all of the cases of like the surety brings ruin prompt, when have I been too certain and what did it cost me? This one, there are so many times where in a relationship setting where I was like super certain about a guy, and I'm like, well, a part of me does know that maybe he's not being honest, maybe there isn't integrity here, but I'm too certain about it that I'm not opening my mind, and it cost me like a pretty traumatic heartbreak. So it's why it's important to make sure that you're not closing your mind to things, and you're opening your mind to other perspectives, and you're not being too overly zealous and like going out there and kind of like Icarus jumping and flying into the sun without thinking of anything else. That's the best way I could think to transition into the actual topic of today's episode, which is the spiritual implications of Icarus and the sun. We all have wings. Some are made of wax, some of wisdom. The story of Icarus is not just about flight. It's about forgetting, about the moment when the soul, intoxicated by freedom, flies too close to the source, or when the ego, intoxicated with power, flies too close to the negative polarity. In this episode, we explore the myth of Icarus and the sun and the spiritual implications. What does it mean to rise too fast, to ignore the voice of guidance, to fall, not because we failed, but because we forgot our true purpose, our true mission. When we get too overly cocky, when we have too much arrogance, that we forget what we are here to do, what we are here to accomplish, and we forget our mission, our purpose, our direction, we can get very distracted, and even the soul can get distracted. You think of it like when we incarnate as a soul, we are here for a purpose. But then we get so distracted with the earthly things that we forget. And that's the falling asleep. And that's when the ego takes over, and then the ego, gets very, very cocky and very arrogant, and then puts us in negative situations. And then we have to reawaken and redirect ourselves back. I see the myth of Icarus as the price of naive arrogance. This is ignoring the advice of the elders or guidance. If you look even at Daedalus as a spirit guide for Icarus, and it's telling him, don't do this. Like his guardian angel, do not do this. Like, you are being freed right now from a situation because they were breaking free from, a prison in Crete. You're being freed. You might want your life at the other end of this journey. Do not fly too close to the sun. He's like, I know better. I want to do this. This seems super cool. I'm going to go do this thing right now really quick, and I'm going to be fine, and you're wrong. And that's like the most toxic spiritual arrogance that could ever be. So, like, mythical background of this is Daedalus, the father of Icarus, was a master craftsman and built wings of wax and feathers for himself and his son to escape Crete. When they are flying, when they work, they get the wings on, they escape, they are in the sky, they are flying. Daedalus warns Icarus, fly not too low, lest the sea dampen your wings. Fly not too high, lest the sun melts them. So Icarus is thinking, I don't want to go too close to the sea because I already know the sea, right? He doesn't know the sun. He wants to go up there. He wants to go up there, he wants to see that, right? He is overwhelmed by the thrill of flight and ascends too close to the sun. His wings melt, he falls into the sea and dies. So this is also like a myth that like there's an island Icaria named after this. So the sea where he fell is named the Icarian Sea as well, and Icaria, a mythic echo of his descent. So what occurred was, this is, it's excitement, but it's also like he heard the warning. When you hear a warning, listen to the warning. He ignored it. You can excuse it as excitement, you can excuse it as however you want to excuse it, but he ignored the warnings. He was so excited to be flying, he ended up having both things occur. So he was warned about the sea, he was warned about the sun. The sea would have been less dangerous. Right, the sea would have been a safer thing if his wings dampened on the sea. He just would have ended up in the sea, and he probably could have had a higher chance of survival. The sun, no way, no how. He flew all the way up into Helios, all the way up into the sun, and his wings melted, and he fell into the sea, and there would have been no saving him there. That is, in his excitement, in the excited state. And this can also be explained as an anxiety state. And there are a few different ways I want to talk about this, because there's different spiritual implications here. In that excited state, what he ended up doing was he ignored the warnings and was just seeking the thrill. When in life we do things to just seek the thrill and ignore the warnings, oftentimes we end up injuring ourselves. We end up getting hurt. This is like people seeking the thrill and doing drugs, right? There's a thrill that you feel, and you ignore all the warnings, all the side effects, and then a lot of those same people end up, unfortunately, losing their life as a result of the drugs. So there is that implication as well, where when we ignore warnings just to feel something good, feel something fun, we end up hurting ourselves. When we know that something is not good, when we know something's going to cause damage, and we do it anyway, just for the thrill, we're stabbing ourselves in the back. We're hurting ourselves. We're not honoring ourselves, right? So another aspect of this is in anxiety. I know this from experience. When we are anxious, when we are overwhelmed, when we are in those states of anxiety, and someone tries to tell us something, a lot of times we don't hear it because we are so consumed by fear. And what we end up doing is causing ourselves more harm. What I mean by this is, let's say, in this case, that Icarus, instead of being excited, was afraid. And he heard the warnings, but he is so afraid that he's not paying attention to anything around him, and he ends up putting himself in danger. I could see the more anxious start of that, of like him falling into the sea as opposed to the sun. Like the sun was the more excited part. If he was very, very anxious and he's like, oh no, like what's going to happen, and very, very overwhelmed, he might end up flying too low because he can't keep himself afloat due to anxiety, that he ends up falling into the sea. That would be the reverse of that. An example of this, like I've had times where I've been in panic states where I actually end up putting myself in more harm to avoid the thing that I'm afraid of, instead of listening to someone helping me and guiding me. I've been in those situations. I think anyone who's been in an anxiety and panic attack state can relate. When you hear the warnings, when you hear the support, you don't hear it. It goes over your head. You're anxious. And if Icarus was scared of this breaking free, oh no, what if they catch us? What's going to happen? What if this doesn't work? And his father's warning him. In both cases, maybe he could have flown too high because he was afraid and ended up in the sun, and the same thing could have happened. Or maybe he could have flown too low and ended up in the sea in a different way. You can see this is in either case. Icarus was not hearing or heeding the warnings. He was overwhelmed in one way or another, either the excited, positive, excited, overwhelmed, that turns into a negative when you're just seeking the thrill only and you're not putting your safety as a priority, or if it's the anxious side, whatever it was, he turned off his ears. He did not heed the warnings. When you don't listen to the warnings and something bad happens and you wonder, why did this something bad happen? You were warned about it. So ambition versus alignment. Icarus represents the soul's desire to transcend, but without grounding. So this is another spiritual implication of the story of Icarus, is what can happen when you are going through the path of alignment, but you don't take time to ground. One of the biggest things that I had to learn not to neglect was grounding. After every event I would do, after every client, after everything that I do, anything that I do, card reading, journaling, meditation, I gotta do a grounding. I have to ground in the earth, or sometimes I'll eat honey, something with honey, a tea with honey for grounding. Honey is really good for grounding. Something with grounding, okay? Because grounding is that balance. We are not just the soul. We are also the body. We are not just the heart. We are also the mind. We are not just the present. We are the things that happened to us in the past that influence the present, and what we decide in the present dictates our future. We are not just one thing that can go straight up into the sky and be fine. Okay, it's the grounding, it's the gravity. Okay, Icarus cannot fly. He's a human. Okay, he had wings that were made for him to be able to fly, so he could go up to the sky. Once the wings melted away, gravity pulled him back to earth. If he was balanced between the enlightenment, the sun, the grounding, the sea, and the in-between, flying in between, balanced between, seeking enlightenment but also grounding, like Daedalus did successfully, then he could have made it to his destination. So that is something that's important to keep in mind, is if we look at this as a metaphor of grounding, the negative effects of grounding is, if you're going to go up to the sky, eventually the earth is going to pull you back, okay? So if you're seeking enlightenment and you are not grounding, eventually forces of nature, spiritual gravity is going to pull you back to the earth, and it's going to be a dramatic fall if you are not balanced. If you get stuck up there and you are not balanced, it's going to be a dramatic fall. If he went up to the sun and he decided, I'm going to go down lower, actually, because I don't need to be all the way up here all the time. I can have that balance. If he made that decision to ground, then he wouldn't have had a dramatic fall. It's important to ground. And added to that would be also freedom versus wisdom. This is another implication. So we kind of understand metaphor, grounding, importance of grounding. Freedom versus wisdom. Flight is sacred, but without discipline, it becomes destruction. So this is in anything. Without discipline, it's destructive. Okay? So Icarus He is going, to escape his prison in Crete with his father. He has the freedom. Daedalus has the wisdom to know not to fly into the sun. He warns Icarus. Icarus ignorantly ignores the wisdom and flies into the sun. Daedalus has the freedom and the wisdom, the balancing of the grounding of everything. Daedalus is the prime example that in a situation like this, whatever, it can be a metaphor for a number of things for spiritual implications. Whatever it is, Daedalus succeeds. Icarus does not. Also, another thing that I want to say is we can look at Daedalus as a metaphor for the creator, for example. Daedalus created the wings. Daedalus knows what will happen to the wings. Icarus ignores the creator's warning. In our own life, do we ignore our creator's warning? Who created us, who created the world? Do we ignore our spirit team? Do we ignore source because we think we know better? And then we end up with a dramatic fall. I do like to think of this. Daedalus is Icarus's father. So he is his creator. He created the wings. Daedalus knows how to best help and guide his son and his creation, the wings, that are becoming one thing, Icarus and the wings. So he is creator. Icarus, creator's son. Icarus does not heed the warnings of the creator. Thus he hurts himself by having pride to think that he knows better, and then he falls. So that is another metaphor implication there, is when we ignore the creator, when we ignore the guidance of source, we will fall. Okay, if we are being warned, I can think of some examples of this in my life where I've been specifically told in guidance, don't go looking for this thing, don't go and do this thing, and I do it. Maybe Icarus is one of my ancestors, because sometimes I do not heed the warnings and I do it, and then I get burned. And then I have a dramatic fall. And I'm like, why did that happen? Well, maybe I was warned not to do this thing, but because I have free will, because we have free will, we can choose to ignore. We can also choose to abide by the warnings. Icarus was probably on his descent down, I wonder why this happened. And Daedalus is like, I told you, you fool, don't do this. We're like, well, I did it anyway. Why? Well, because we're humans. We do those things. We make those mistakes. Now, it's not always that we can't get up when we fall. In Icarus's case, he could not, but something else was created. The Icarian Sea, Icaria. So I do also really love the myths that give like an explanation to like the names of islands and seas and things, because it's very cute. It's like, okay, the ancient Greeks like, we need a story to explain this. We have to explain it. Also, where Icaria is, does it make sense? Where were they flying to? Wait. Where were they flying to? Icaria is... Yeah, so they must have been flying towards, like, completely towards, Thessaloniki, maybe, well, modern day Turkey or Bulgaria. They were flying in that direction. They were flying north as well. Because I'm looking on the map, I don't know how to show you, but on the map, you can see Icaria is up there and Crete is down there. So they were going north. That adds to the metaphor. I just realized this because they're heading north. The North Star. Okay. This is a reach. This is a reach. But They were flying north. They were being oriented north. Probably following the North Star to get out. The North Star can be the metaphor of your guiding light. In a way to interpret this, Daedalus could have been that North Star, that guiding light for Icarus, right? And Icarus had that direction guiding him to where he needed to be, but he decided to veer off. I really love using the North Star example, our guiding light, right? So if Daedalus is Icarus's guiding light, heading north, heading, away from chaos, away from danger, north to peace, because the element of frost, so north is typically colder, the element of frost is peacefulness, relaxation, rest, so heading from the chaos of Crete and the, ripple effect of the Minotaur and the labyrinth, heading away from chaos into the north, into the colder climate, into peace. Icarus had his guiding light, guiding him towards peace from the chaos. He got so excited and spiritually arrogant that he decided, I'm gonna do whatever I want and ignore my guiding light, and he ended up falling. He didn't make it to the destination. It's highly likely that they were probably heading towards modern-day Thessaloniki area, just of where Icaria is located in the Icarian Sea. Probably likely that that's where they were going. A lot of mountain ranges up there. It's the calm. With the elements like fire is the soul, air is the mind, water is the emotional body, earth is the physical, and the frost is like the peace, the calm that we seek after traumas of the past. So actually all the elements are present in Icarus's myth. Okay, fire, the sun, so the spiritual body. When you are too spiritually excess, you get burned, right? So going back to last week, gotta make these all connect somehow, even though I'm randomly pulling them from a cup. The spiritual body, Icarus, he went to the sun. The sun is the spiritual body system. Think about it like this. So our spirituality, in excess, you get burned. If you don't ground, you get burned. The dramatic fall through the air, through the mental body, when we are too spiritually excess, the first thing that gets overwhelmed and starts to fall is the mind. His wings burned, dissolved. There's a issue with physical body. As he's falling, okay, get to the physical body, he hits the water, the emotional body. The emotional pain that happens when you are too spiritually excess, that you do not ground. There are so many, and we talked about this last week, the frozen awoken, and so many people who they go through the awakening and they forget that we incarnated in the physical for a purpose, and then they don't want to be in the physical, and then they go through mental and emotional turmoil and wonder what's going on. It's the side effects of not acknowledging that you need to ground, that we incarnated in the physical for a purpose. We are a soul within a body. The awakening is remembering that we are not a body with a soul, we are a soul within a body, that we are more, but we incarnated in our body for a purpose. Icarus was given his wings for the purpose of escaping from the chaos of Crete. He saw it as an opportunity. Hey, I'm gonna go fly into the sun and do something that I'm not supposed to do. And then he fell. We are not supposed to get so lost in spirituality that we forget why we're here in the physical, that we forget our mental health, that we forget our emotional health, that we are only driven by the spirit. We should be driven by all things. 5-body system alignment. Okay? We should be in alignment with our mental body, our emotional body. Our mental and emotional health are vital for our spiritual health, our physical health, and for the inner child health, for the inner child healing, for acknowledging and healing our past. Integrating the things from our past that we want to carry with us, letting go of the things from our past that are weighing us down, freeing ourselves and moving forward into times of peace. Icarus and Daedalus were heading towards times of peace from their past. Icarus couldn't make it to his destination because he got distracted and lost seeking enlightenment, seeking the sun, that he did not ground himself, that he did not consider his mental body or his emotional body or grounding. Grounding. The negative repercussions of grounding is spiritual implications of Icarus. Okay? You cannot just seek spirituality, seek spiritual healing, and not do the other work. I don't think in my healing journey, I comprehended that I was a soul within a body until about a year in. Because what I had to focus on was the mental healing and the emotional healing first. Then I had to understand my current lifetime. What's going on in my current lifetime. Had to heal all of that first. Understand my physical health. Learn to take care of my vessel that I am living in. Then understanding I am a soul within a body. And then dealing with other things as well. But Icarus, first you gotta deal with the mind. Icarus, he did not listen. Then you gotta deal with the heart. Icarus blindly followed whatever gut thrill he felt. He wasn't listening to like the heart. I'm sure, probably, if this were more than a metaphor, Icarus was feeling, maybe I should listen to my father, that emotional connection. He ignored it. He followed the thrill. He was truly listening to the body. Another thing, when you seek spiritual enlightenment only for the purposes of the flesh, you will fall. What this means is Icarus didn't go through all the steps that he should have to logistically get his way out of a situation that would have caused him to fall. Okay? Another thing is when you seek enlightenment for purposes of the flesh. So let's say, and this is from personal experience of someone doing this for me, okay? Let's say you were dating someone who is in their spirituality, who is in tune with spirit, in tune with source, doing things like I do. And you decide you want to seek some enlightenment, some healing, for the sole purpose of getting that relationship, of getting with that person. You want that person, you pretend, you falsely seek healing. You falsely seek enlightenment just for the purposes of the flesh. And then, when you get rejected or burned in the end, you take it out on said person because you're like, well, maybe what you're doing isn't real because it didn't work for me. Intentions. Beautiful beings. Intentions. In that case, your intention is not pure. So you will not purely receive the healing or guidance that you need. If you are just doing it for the purposes of the flesh, you will fall and you will get burned. Because then you are manipulating source. You are manipulating the ether. You are manipulating enlightenment and healing for your physical gain. So you will get burned in the end. This can be the same example as people being fakes. Scamming people. Scam artists. That's what I'm looking for. Scam artists as well. Eventually, the ether and source are going to get angry. Not angry, a human angry, but angry in the sense of you are manipulating spirit for reasons of the flesh. So the universe will eventually, your karma. Anger of source or the universe is just karma. It's not like true human anger. It's karma. So karma is going to come and bite you in the butt if you are only doing things for reasons of the flesh, but pretending you're doing it for reasons of the soul. Icarus was not going up to the sun because he wanted to seek enlightenment and become one with source. He was going up to the sun because his ego was like, hey, I can do this thing. I'm going to ignore my dad. I'm going to go do what I want to do. I'm doing it for the flesh. That's what Icarus was doing. He was doing it for the flesh. He was not doing it for his soul. He was ignoring, on the way up, he was ignoring any mental guidance. And also on the way up, he was ignoring any emotional guidance as well. He was ignoring what he has learned from his father, from the fact that his father, Daedalus in myth, known as like an amazing inventor, also partially the cause for the Minotaur, but Daedalus had proven that he knows what he's talking about. And he's Icarus' dad. Icarus did not listen to him at all. He turned off his ears. He was only following his flesh and his desire to, I want to go to the sun. not thinking of anything else. When we do that, when we do things like that, we do get burned and we will have a fall. And that is karma. Icarus experienced karma. He didn't listen to his father. He didn't heed the warnings. He went up to the sun burned him and sent him plummeting into the sea. Also karma. There's a lot of different ways you can use Icarus and his myth to explain and to be a metaphor for so many different things. The myth of Icarus, that's why I couldn't pinpoint it as just like one thing, because there's so many different spiritual implications of the myth of Icarus. Daedalus also can represent like the guardian angel giving you safe passage to the next destination of your journey. And if you don't heed the warnings of your guardian angel, you will get burned. Guardian angels, they can help you, they can protect you if you heed their warnings. But we have free will. And if we're actively putting ourselves in harm's way, and then we get severely injured or severely burned or severely hurt, and we're like, where's my guardian angel? Or did you feel a guidance that you shouldn't do this thing? Yeah, but I also felt like I should do it anyway. And then you get burned. And where are my guardian angels? Your guardian angels were that voice telling you, don't do this thing. Don't play with fate. Don't play with your guidance team. They're warning you for a reason. When you feel source guiding you not to do something and you do it anyway and you get hurt. Icarus. That's what it is. We have to listen to that guidance. That's why listening to your guidance team is very important. So Icarus's fall can also like mirror a little bit with Persephone. But I kind of like wrote this down because Persephone is a different descent. Persephone didn't have anyone warning her not to eat the pomegranate seeds. She did it anyway. And what ended up happening is she did become the queen of the underworld and have the balance of living in the underworld and also living on the earth, and there was compromise. And in her story, because it wasn't a warning telling her don't do this thing, she didn't have some dramatic fall. She had balance. Persephone is like the reverse of like, she has a lot of balance in her story, and I can't wait to get to like fully deep diving into her story. Icarus had warnings, and so he had a dramatic fall. So there are examples in myth of that balance that I was talking about. Like Icarus, he could have flown in between. Daedalus in that myth, I mean, he is the opposite of Icarus. He follows the guidance, he gets to his destination. He goes up north and gets to his destination, gets to his peace. Also, one thing I noted is that Icarus can very clearly be the fool in the tarot card. The leap into the unknown, and like the reverse of that is like ignorantly and arrogantly leaping into the unknown. I just thought that was interesting because I just kept thinking like Daedalus must have been thinking, you fool, and I just kept thinking about that over and over and again, like he's the fool card. He's the fool. It represents that very clearly. So while he was falling, it was stripping the illusion and the ego and the excess, only leaving truth. As he was falling and he was hitting the sea, he's like, my dad was right. My creator was right. I should have listened to my warnings. My spirit team was right. They were right. And then smack fall, Icarian scene in Icaria was born. The fall is always very interesting because the fall is never the end. It's the beginning of becoming something else. And a lot of times when we hit the fall, we do become something else. A lot of us can figure out when we gain the clarity and perspective, like, maybe I should have listened to my team, my spirit team, I should have listened to source. Some of us become something else in like a negative sense where then there is a anger towards enlightenment because something bad happened, because maybe you weren't doing it for the soul, you were doing it for the flesh. There's always, when you experience any sort of fall or rise, there is something else. Persephone became something else, okay? Icarus became the sea in the island Icaria, named after him. In myth, there's a lot of like the gods turning like into islands or constellations, those who transition out of the physical reality, becoming something else. You always become something else, but when a fall is so dramatic, you have to really work to rise again. That's the story. Persephone, she's always rising and going through the cycles. Like she is, like we talked about this in the Eleusine Mysteries, like she's always going through that transition of the rise and fall, like the grounding and the enlightenment, just going back and forth. That is more of like a cycle of life, is the going back and forth. It's just important not to get lost in the fall. That's the important part. Is if you hit the ground dramatically and you're like, I want to give up, and you're going through a dark night of the soul, or the ego is taking over, like, haha, I told you so. The ego, that little lower self voice inside of us, loves to make us feel like we are stupid and naive for trying to, you know, rise into the positive polarity. It can be very easy to get caught in those states. We have to remember that dramatic falls, you can rise dramatically as well, as long as you remember to ground, of course, and understand your why. Why are you doing it? Why are you seeking enlightenment? Why are you seeking healing? Like, I can say I sought healing to heal the trauma and phobias and the things that I was experiencing, because I couldn't live. I was living in a state of fear. I started seeking enlightenment because when I realized that there is so much more, like, I don't want to forget. I don't want to fall asleep again. I don't want to pretend that I don't understand these things, that I don't know these things. And I love sharing. So I love to share things with people. It's understanding why you're doing it. If Icarus thought to himself, why am I flying into the sun? Is it because it would be good for me to fly into the sun? Or is it because, like, I just kind of egotistically want to fly into the sun? If he stopped and thought about, why am I doing this? Maybe he would have grounded himself. Always question, why are you doing it? And is it in alignment with all of you? Does any part of you disagree with what you are doing? Because if any part of you disagrees with what you are doing, then it is not in alignment with you. This is the biggest advice I give clients, and it's free advice for all of you right now. If anything you are doing does not align or resonate with a part of you, so let's say all levels but your mind, for example, your mind is like, this isn't right, this isn't right, this isn't right, but the rest of you is like, yeah, okay. Your mind telling you this isn't right is the voice you should be listening to, because that is your mental body system telling you this is not in alignment with all of you. It might be in alignment with part of you. Also, like in relationships, you might get along with someone on multiple levels, but maybe there's one level you're not compatible. Then that's not the right situation. Because for, you know, truly harmonious connections, healthy relationships, healthy situations, all parts of you are going to be in alignment and be in agreement about this thing. In today's world, we are all Icarus because we are chasing success without rest. We are seeking spiritual highs without integration. We are ignoring wisdom of ancestors and elders and guides. We are experiencing this ascension without grounding is dangerous. That's the warning of the myth. Freedom without humility leads to collapse. Again, and enlightenment is not something to conquer. It's something to honor. It's something to integrate within us. The goal isn't to enlighten to be better. The goal is the journey, and for all of us to rise together. Icarus flew and he fell, but in his fall he became a legend. His story a warning and a mirror. We all rise, we all forget, we all fall. The question is whether we will rise, whether we will take the lessons and the wisdom. When we are in the fall, when we are falling again, do we complete the descent and completely give up and follow the negative polarity? Or do we choose to rise again? Do we choose to stop and pause and take the lessons and wisdoms from our mistakes and continue to ascend? Icarus continued the fall. He also kind of didn't have a choice. He didn't have the wings, but he continued the fall. We don't have to continue the fall. If we are stuck in a spiritual low, we can rise again, but with the lessons we have learned from the previous experience. In Icarus' case, the wings couldn't be rebuilt. Okay, in the moment while he's falling, he couldn't have rebuilt them. He damaged them. If he managed to survive, he could have gone through the struggle that would have been swimming, finding land, asking for help, humbling himself, humility, and then figuring out a way to maybe rebuild the wings, try and remember the lessons of Daedalus, and finally get to that final destination. In the myth of Icarus, he just becomes the Icarian Sea and Icaria. But there is another version of this myth where he survives the fall and he fights to rise again. And this time, when he's flying to meet Daedalus in the mountains of Thessaloniki, that's where I am guessing that they're going. I honestly do not remember where in the myth it says that they were flying towards, but northern Greece or Macedonia, probably that direction. Once he finally joins him there, he's like, you know what? I learned from my mistakes, and this time I did it the right way. I did it with your guidance. I did it with the knowledge of what happens when you arrogantly fly into the sun. There's another version of that myth where he survives and he goes through the struggle of rising again. And we are that version of the myth. Because each time we go through those experiences, we can choose to go through the struggle of rising again. And then the reward of getting to that final destination, of getting to that part, that sweet spot, that peace of the enlightenment journey and the healing journey is going to be even more rewarding because we learned the lessons. Every fall is a lesson. So, that being said, to assist you in your journey, here are some affirmations. I honor my ambition and ground it in truth. I rise with reverence, not recklessness. I listen to the voice of wisdom before I leap. My fall is not failure, it is transformation. I fly toward the sun, not to conquer it, but to remember who I am. And journal prompts for next week. Where in my life have I flown too close to the sun? And what did I learn from the fall? What does the sun symbolize for me? And how do I relate to it? Who is my Daedalus, the guide I've ignored or forgotten? What wings have I built, and are they made of wisdom or wax? If I could speak to Icarus mid-flight, what would I say, and what would he say back? We will discuss these next week. Speaking of next week, what is next week's episode? Let's pull from the cup. We've got this one. Oh, there's two. Oh, but I'm going to go with this one. I'm going to go with this one. I'm going to go with the bigger one because I read it and I like it. So, metaphors in Aristophanes' plays. Because I was talking about it. So we're going to be doing it. I was really hoping I'd pull this from the cup. That was not planned. There was another one that I pulled too, but this is the one we're going with. Because it's the one I read. So Aristophanes next week. This is definitely going to be a part 1. So join me for part 1 of Metaphors and Aristophanes' plays next week. Until then, let's keep seeking enlightenment and clarity, and let's follow the guidance of the ones before us.